You are listening to the Southwestern American Choral Directors Association Connections podcast, where we will interview choral directors, leaders, and movers and shakers within our region. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Wall. We hope you enjoy these conversations. Please like and subscribe this YouTube channel for future content. Hello, everybody out there in SWACDA land. Today I'm bringing you BRYAN Taylor. BRYAN is the Director of Traditional Music and Worship Arts at the Liberty United Methodist Church in Liberty, Missouri. He completed his 32nd season recently as a singer in the Grammy-Award-winning Kansas City Chorale, and he is the founder and director of the Liberty Community Chorus, now in its 21st season. He also was taught at Kearney High School from 1985 to 2000. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation with BRYAN Taylor. Let me just remind you to please check out the Southwestern Connection magazine that can be delivered to your inbox. Make sure that your spam settings are where you can find that in your normal inbox. And make sure you click all the way through to get to the magazine. We see a lot of you open in your email, but not everybody clicking all the way through. So make sure you click all the way through that and read some really great resources and articles there, repertoire suggestions, all kinds of neat history and that kind of thing in those magazines. So be sure you do that. It's carefully curated by our president, Jonathan Owen. So just wanted to encourage you to do that. Otherwise, we do hope to see you in Dallas for the national conference. And without further delay, let's get into this episode with BRYAN Taylor. All right, welcome everybody. I'm here with BRYAN Taylor. BRYAN, will you first tell us a little bit about your backstory, your musical upbringing, and what you do in the world?
Yep. Well, it's an honor to be here. And my backstory happens from, I grew up in Steelville, Missouri, small town, South Central Missouri, part of a Southern Baptist church that had a very strong choir and music program there. And it was there that Manfred and Nancy Ray kind of got me involved, kept their hands on me, pushed me in the right direction, and it stuck. They were there for 50 plus years as the organist and choir director. So I got my lessons from them and went to William Jewell and did music ed, taught high school for 15 years, had a great time before that, working a year at Wingert Jones Music in the choral department. And so met a lot of people, both in person and on the phone, and really got a great idea of what was great literature. How do you find it? Of course, it's way different today, but still good literature still happens in the, by asking other people, by having a good music company to go to, reliable folks that can get your music for you. And then started teaching at Kearney for 15 years in Missouri, choral music, both junior high and high school. Loved that. Was at a Presbyterian church in Kansas City during that time. And then came to Liberty United Methodist in 1995. Did that part-time and then asked if they would take me on full-time in 2000 and left teaching and have been here ever since and still full-time doing, my title is Director of Music and Worship Arts. And so enjoy doing all of the planning for that and doing a lot of art work here as well with a couple of galleries in the church that I enjoy finding artists here in town, both in locally and some throughout the state. But it's been a lot of fun building that. I sing with the Kansas City Chorale. I've been doing that for 33 years and have loved that, the mountaintop experiences we've had, a couple of Grammys, and just learning great literature, being influenced by that and the singers that I get to sing with. And I have a community chorus here in town called the Liberty Community Chorus, which is an unauditioned group of about 85 singers, and we do 4 concerts a year. And so it keeps me busy and out of trouble, all of those things.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like a very, lucrative and rewarding career that you've got there piecemeal together with a bunch of different, rings, hats in many different rings, so to speak. Yeah.
A lot of plates spinning.
For sure. Okay, so now go into a little bit about your role with Southwestern ACDA, what you're going to be doing for us and what your maybe vision and what you're most excited about there for that.
So this is a second and a half time to take this position of music and worship. One of those times was when my mother was dealing with cancer and passed, and so I took some time off and was able to come back to that this time as well. So really, I think most of us that do traditional music in our worship in our churches, certainly since COVID, have worried about are we going to survive? And we've certainly seen a lot of churches here in Kansas City and the Northland that have lost their choirs. Part of that is to try to help them keep their foot in the door. And sometimes it's down to 4 singers or 6 or 10, and sometimes the church has closed. And so it's been unfortunate. Some of the new members that we have here have come from other churches and congregations that have lost their entire church, some of which they just lost a lot of their momentum with music. And so they're coming looking for a church that has all those things, that still that has and knows what an acolyte is, and that has a liturgist and banners and those things that still mean traditional worship for them. I think the biggest part of my dream for SWACDA and music and worship is to continue to help people find great literature and the building of different programs, whether it be a cantata for Christmas or a hymn festival. So if I can help continue to build and give ideas and listen to ideas and share those with our other church musicians in our region, to me, that's the most important thing. Is to have you heard this piece before? I think those conversations are really important. Some people are quite proud of sharing those things and can make lists for you very easily. And so being able to share those compilations with different directors, to me, is I'm a repertoire geek. And so I really like many different styles of music here. We do gospel to classics, and we have a nice pipe organ and a nice piano and a good place to sing. But some people don't have those. And so the questions that we're getting from different directors, trying to help them answer and how to keep motivating. We've done a couple of art shows and worship services where we do have an artist come and bring their art, but we also commission some things from him that we're going to be performing in the service, and so people can see those visually as well. So enjoy those kind of creative things. Those are the things I really want to work on. And because we're going to New Mexico for our regional conference, we're going to be able to meet a lot of people and hopefully stimulate some folks that we don't get to connect with very often. I look forward to that, doing the ecumenical service there. Different people related to different composers. And so those are exciting things that I hope to be able to continue to build into our program.
Yeah, that's all very cool. It sounds like the impact of post-COVID you mentioned hit music and worship as hard as it did education, and all of us in the music world. So it's a noble cause that you have taken up, it seems like, to help folks. And that's part of the reason for this podcast, to interview our chairs first, so that just people know that you're there, you're available, that get to know you a little better. Hopefully don't feel like there's much of a barrier there where they can come and reach out to you. It sounds like you've got a lot of really neat ideas and how to marry music with the aesthetic too. So that's very cool.
Thank you.
What is a piece of music then that you think maybe best embodies your personality? It doesn't have to be choral, but it can be.
So it sounds trite, but directly above my computer screen is a calligraphy print that one of the artists that we've featured here was a college artist at William Jewell named David Johnson. He was the Timothy Botts of our area. He was a great calligrapher, just a swell guy. And he married his faith to his art. And the piece of art that's above my computer is Sing Me to Heaven that he did, which is a nice, giant, colorful Sing Me to Heaven, and then all of the text under that. I was fortunate to meet Dan Gothrop several times, and the Kansas City Chorale recorded his "Sing Me to Heaven" on a CD called the American Hymn Book, which had Shaw Parker things on it, and "Sing Me to Heaven." His wife Jane Greiner wrote the text to that, and to me, it embodies my thoughts of loving the lullaby part of my life, and my grandchildren, my children, that it talks about love, and then and those things that we deal with love, with spouses and family and friends, and then it talks about "Sing Me to Heaven," and it talks about the death part of our life. And I love that the three things that it encompasses. It's not an easy piece to sing. It's so easy to listen to when it's done right, and it's both challenging and beautiful. And who of us has ever, we don't use the word sequestered chambers much, and that first sentence, "In my heart sequestered chambers," it already captures our attention. And so I love the feeling of that piece. It kind of embodies the things I think about a lot, particularly as a church musician, the births and the celebrations of life that we have with children in our congregation, and the love, the marriages, and the couples that celebrate anniversaries, and then the death. I probably, if I had a title, it's not the wedding singer, it's the funeral singer. To me, it feels like that's what I'm here for, is to give comfort and to help in any way I can with the music of a celebration of life. Some of them are tragic, but many of them, that song particularly encompasses the final verse of that.
Yeah, I agree. I've had the opportunity to talk to Dan Goff a couple times as well, and just a great human. But
Yes.
I encourage everybody to go down that rabbit hole of his music as well, because while that's the one that he's most well known for, there's so many other great things that he's composed.
We don't know. Many people don't know. After "Sing Me to Heaven," it probably outsold most of the mountain of music out there, and even he was shocked by that. But it was created at a time we needed it, and it continues to really touch us.
Absolutely, yeah, great choice. Okay, so going a little bit further down, what is your desert island choral piece? Maybe only one that you could have with you for a while on loop until you're saved.
Yeah, I would need an instrument there to help me out, but really wouldn't need that. I think "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross" of Gilbert Martin, to me, it has the subtlety and quietness that we all catch ourselves humming and singing at times, the most beautiful soft passages, and then it gives us a chance to be big and bold, and rubato, which is our life, gives us all the time. We've rush forward in life, and we have to back up at times too. I had the great honor of having Weston Noble as my all-state choir director in 1979. And although we did not do that on that program, one of the pieces he introduced to us was "Beate Coram Via," the Stanford piece that is, of all a cappella pieces, that's my favorite. So if I could put that in my back pocket with "When I Survey," those two pieces I would have on a desert island for sure.
Okay. Do you have, and you mentioned you're sort of a repertoire curator. You love diving into repertoire. So talk to us a little bit about your philosophy of programming then.
I always need some kind of image or phrase to theme a concert, and then the pieces start coming to me. So for Christmas cantatas, for instance, I do certainly, we all have church cantatas that we've purchased along the way. But the last 10 years or so, I have selected 6 or 7 pieces to work together, and build a monologue around those pieces, and then title it. So this year, it's "O Night Divine," which comes from "O Holy Night." To me, if I put "O Holy Night," everybody gets it, and it's the rabbits out of the hat. And but "O Night Divine," it's a term that's used in that piece many, many times. And so then pieces start coming to me that will work. And then what I decided to do was bookend that cantata, which happens on a Sunday morning. We used to do Saturday evening cantatas, and then we aren't able to bless as many people. We have 2 services in the morning on Sunday, so I can get maybe twice as many people to see the cantata within worship, and our pastors have been gracious to give us that. So O Night Divine, it begins with the Vivaldi Gloria in Excelsis, and it ends with the Hallelujah chorus. And then everything in the middle is newer arrangements. We'll do the Carolyn Jennings Climb to the Top of the Highest Mountain, which is a favorite of the Lutheran colleges, particularly St. Olaf is where I heard it from first. We're doing a Silent Night arrangement of Dan Forrest. I always put a rudder piece in there, and I haven't yet this year for that. And then O Holy Night by Mac Wilberg, which is a fabulous piece. And so now what's left is to write a monologue. And so I try to do that fresh every year. Sometimes I've borrowed some things that I've had before, but I've got a great writer in my choir who's a former journalist and with the Kansas City Star, and so I give him my monologues, and he then shreds them and puts them back together, and then we find different narrators that are part of the congregation, and so that's how I kind of program. I kind of think of all those things kind of separately, but who's going to read it? It doesn't have to be a pastor. Sometimes that's not the right choice. Give them a Sunday off. And sometimes it's all choir members that do that, but for programming purposes for the church, that's kind of how I do that. This week for All Saints, I really wanted to do Come Come Ye Saints, the Mac Wilberg arrangement, which is huge, big. And then I had half of my tenor section sign out and are gone. And so I had this James Whitbourne piece that I really wanted to do. We lost James Whitbourne last year, a British composer, and we're doing an obscure, beautiful piece called Give Me the Wings of Faith, which talks about the saints. And it's a simple piece except for the sopranos, and they're generally from C to G all the time. So it's gentle, but a really neat text. And it's only about 3 minutes long, so it's going to fit perfectly. And then so what else can we do in a day when I don't have a full tenor section? And so I try to listen to the St. Olaf Choir and choirs like that, programs that they've done, and fell in love with hearing some of John Ferguson's arrangements. And he had their organist there at St. Olaf for many, many years. And he did a wonderful arrangement for organ and congregation on Shall We Gather at the River. And it's all this, so you have this whole river going on. And then we just read it out of the hymnal, unison harmony, 4 stanzas. And the congregation gets more than a normal hymn. They feel like they're a really vital, and they are the vital part. The hymns are the vital part of the service. It's not the choral anthem, but when we're worrying about getting music ready, by golly, it's the anthem that we worry about the most. And so programming for those services are really, to me, All Saints Day. We do think about, in our church, we name those that have died in the last year, but all of us who've lost a dear one, or the pillars of this church, they're all there in our minds at the same time. And so we do a Good Friday cantata, and so to me, Good Friday and Maundy Thursday became the service of my year, and I get more passion out of that. And it's not that Easter's not as exciting, but it's certainly kind of a high five moment compared to what we pour into Good Friday as a choir. And so you take those experiences and kind of build on them. We do a nailing of petitions at that. So for me, programming is music, but it's also, what else can you do that touches people? And so we give them a black piece of paper, and they come up literally and nail it to crosses up front. And just the sound of that gets us all deeper. That's kind of how I work my programming. It's like auditioning my high school students for musicals. When I went home, I'd stack all these papers up about who's going to get that part, and you'd switch and play the game. And I do that. I took everything off my piano here because it was piled with music that I still have to program, but it's a fun
Yeah,
part. I like it
right now either, but um, yeah. So you hit on quite a few things there, and that's it's obviously very different from sort of a educational calendar and different purposes, for the purpose of worship, trying to hit folks in a different way. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that also in terms of and this is going to be different for you depending on where you are in the liturgical calendar, but what does the rehearsal process look like for you under your direction?
Yeah. And so we rehearse in the sanctuary mainly because of all of that. The floor was redone, the sanctuary was repainted, and we want to be in the room we're going to sing in on Sunday morning. And not every church can do that, but we have the ability to do that. And so we moved rehearsal in the sanctuary, and we love that because if we need the organ, we've got it. If we need the piano, we've got that. And so my warm-ups for church choirs can be as they were for my high school choirs. What I end up doing is finding those places in the music that we've got in their folder, and right now we've got a bunch in there. We start a lot of times with the choral call to prayers, and we'll go through a series of those on neutral syllables. We still do some counting and tuning exercises, but I try to get into the music fairly quickly. I've given them through the first of the year of their music. I used to not do that as much, but as much music as we have, and we're 35 members now. And the men's section, we have 5 in each, 5 basses, now 6, I guess, as of last week, and 5 tenors. And that I'm lucky that it's balanced that way. But this Sunday, there's no way. My top 2 tenors are gone, and so we're limited on what we can do. So I used to never think about it because we at one time had nearly 70 in this choir, and so I never thought about voicings. They always worked, and so now I have to be really precise on what I've got out there for them and let them know how to pace that. I've always talked to them about being a family. And that we share things that we can share about the troubles we have. But that's how we do rehearsal. I try to have a devotion, if not every week. We do that. We do a retreat setting kind of first of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year, so that people can kind of let down their hair and experience talking to one another a little bit more than singing all the time. Did I hit any of those answers?
No, I think you did for sure. And, it highlights that you're a good person to go to for our music and worship folks, that for creative solutions for voicing problems, when it comes to like repertoire substitutions, that kind of thing. Because you've gone through it yourself.
Yeah.
What pointers might you have for an emerging choral leader in the church or music and worship landscape?
For up and coming conductors for church music, I really encourage them to, they need to learn lots of different styles. Depending on if they're Episcopals or Catholics, they have their own set format of what needs to be done in those. I worry about the Methodist Church and Presbyterians and Baptists going forward. We had a large Baptist church here in town that 10 years ago did away with their choir completely, and they had 100 voices there. And so it was tragic to watch. I mean, it evolves all the time. And so I think even though Methodist churches have evolved a lot to either ors or a blended service, I always say blended services just make everybody mad. And so we just had an all church worship 2 weeks ago. So we brought the band in the traditional sanctuary, and we'll do that again out at the Contemporary. So that's part of being a multi-campus church, is to try to keep it together. For young directors, you know, they need to get in front of people. They need to be able to be like intern almost. We have one in my community course right now that's working on her master's, and she doesn't have she's doing all of her classwork right now and doesn't have a choir to conduct. So she sang in that choir. So why not conduct with me on that? And so it's good for her. Same thing with church. And I have a young man that's in college now named Peter. And so I started giving him lessons when his voice was still soprano at age 11. And he's sang with the adult choir all the way since then. And so there are times I've asked him to conduct hymns and to read a monologue or to be in front of the choir, to sing solos. They need to be in front of a group as much as they can. Not every denomination is still going to have a church choir, but my hope is that we can, as my choir members did at Steelville First Baptist, is they instilled the love of church music and let me conduct on the evening services. I mean, they were willing to do that as a high schooler. I'm so grateful to what they left me. And so I always try to give kids a chance to know how important it is and why leading a choir in a church is still important. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. I think
there are fewer
you know,
people doing it now, of course, but it's like people always think there's no organists out in the world studying to be organists, and there are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, you hit on the point that the landscape is likely going to look a lot different than, you know, maybe when you or I entered the field. But there are still creative ways to work around things and to make beautiful music with purpose. So okay, so where you are in your career and life journey, and what advice do you think you would give yourself at 16 years old, looking back?
As a 16-year-old?
Yeah, yeah. So you now, what
Yeah.
advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
I felt really guilty about not jumping into church music immediately. I didn't take any church music classes at college. And I didn't run away from it. I just wanted to teach, and I thought that was important. And you can still teach and do church music too. You can teach congregationally what's going on, but I think I probably encouraged myself at 16 that the baseball probably wasn't going to be the career that, no wonder if I could throw 80 miles an hour, then it wasn't going to make probably my life work well. And that to make sure that you do the things you need to prepare for a life of music. I did not. I had three older sisters. I wasn't, and they all had piano lessons. They all had that blasted John Thompson book. And I could play just from memory some of the things that they were doing. It made them so mad. But I didn't take lessons until my voice teacher demanded it my senior year, summer of, and so I would probably encourage a 16-year-old, take a chance. Make sure you get these things in. Had I taken piano early, maybe I would not have lasted as much, but I knew then I was going to go into music, and I better learn as much as I can before I get there. So trying to probably narrow the vision field of the music part of it would have helped a little bit more, I think. But gosh, having those great musical angels, the Ray family, they helped me so much to be able to conduct. It's one thing to we hear so many people that learn to play organ or piano in their services when they were younger, but man, they didn't put you up to conduct very many things, particularly in the morning services. So that was really welcoming. It doesn't mean that other parts of your life during high school, I was in all sports, but church music was a big deal, and that it was done at such a high level that walking into a college situation, I was ready for the singing part of it for sure. So know the things you're strong in, and look for the things that you're weak in. My piano was weak, and I didn't buy my piano teacher's gifts, but probably needed to get through the keyboard barrier.
Sure.
Yep.
So maybe cultivating the things that you're that you might need down the road that you
Yeah,
um,
and meeting people that have a lot of different skills in that area are helpful to be around as well.
yeah. And you never know really what your path is going to be at 16, but you
Be
know,
open-minded about it for sure.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so sort of in a similar way of thinking here, if say you're at the end stages of your life, what would you look back and what advice would you give yourself now, do you think?
I'm a legacy person. Um, I don't know if I inherited that from my parents. Staying with something a long time is really important to them because it shows that you're dedicated through thick and thin. I like that part of it. I mean, I've been here 30, chorale 33, and the community chorus 23. I don't have any regrets about that, but maybe the fact, I mean, I have thought a lot about what's next for me. Um, I can't imagine not having that rigid schedule of rehearsals. I know where I'm going to be on Sunday night with chorale, and Sunday morning I know where I'm at. I have a little bit of time for the afternoon on Sunday if there's not a concert somewhere I have to go to. Wednesday night's always choir practice. Thursday night's a community chorus rehearsal. Given up a lot of kid time, parenting time, and I regret that. But my wife was loving and kind and able to and she doesn't regret that. So I think taking time for me a little bit more might have been maybe helpful to not schedule 3 careers in one. I mean, I see it as one career, but it's got some pie shapes in there that are unique. And then once you're in there and things are going great, how do you get out of that? How do you back away? So I think one of the things I do is I do a lot of photography on the side, not professionally, just I love nature. And those are the things that really kind of get me through the relaxing part of my life. So I think finding ways to relax, because vacations to me, I mean, were nerve-wracking about what was I missing, and I wasn't smelling roses then. So that would be my
Your advice to yourself. Yeah. Well, that brings me to that next question a little bit further down is, and you kind of hit on this, but you know, what you do to relax or fight burnout. It sounds like your advice to yourself now would probably be to, you know, take a beat and to prioritize yourself.
there's a couple things that have happened because I didn't manage my PTO hours very well last year. It came to November and they said, wow, you have like 190 PTO hours. What do you want to do with those? I said, well, I can start, I can give you an idea since it's November. I mean, it's kind of an important month, but here's an example of what I could be, how I could take those. And they were going, well, you can't do that. So let's take some of these and build some time in next year. And we're going to, so surprise, we're going to give you a 5-week sabbatical for this past summer. And sabbaticals, I think, are really important. And I was lucky enough to be a good friend with Craig Jessup, the former director of the Tabernacle Choir. I sang with Robert Shaw for several years in the Festival Singers at Carnegie, and I sat by this guy named Craig for 3 days. I never knew who he was. I didn't know he was the Tabernacle Choir director, and I just knew he was the nicest guy named Craig I'd ever met. And so somebody asked me, what's it like to sit by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir director? And I was like, what? And so I was so embarrassed. Anyway, I talked to Craig and he goes, you know how wonderful this has been to just have a friend that doesn't use that information for getting close and taking advantage of that. And so Craig and I have developed this wonderful relationship. I've had him do several SWACDA honor choirs, and I called him and said, "Hey, my church is giving me a 5-week sabbatical." And so he goes, "Let me work on that. I'll be back with you." And so he set up a 5-day sabbatical in Salt Lake, and with Mac and the choir, and he drove down from Logan, and so I got to rehearse with the Tabernacle Choir for a couple of hours on Thursday night, and have time down with Mac, and see the system they use. There's not an institution like that to have that many singers, 362 singers, memorizing that much music every week, and having a full-time orchestra there. Phenomenal. I got to meet the librarians, who I really have worried about all these years, is how do they do that? How do they control all of that information? It's like a post office. And anyway, that was a highlight of my sabbatical, was to go in there and not to have free reign, but to be able to experience music created much like we do, but on a much grander scale. And then just have some downtime on either side of that week, and just spend time driving on the coast of Oregon after that with Lynette, my wife, was nice. And I started to open up some ideas about, gosh, I should have done and should do more of that. And so that was a really important part of finding out how to relax.
Yeah, for sure. Taking time for yourself, but doing things that are meaningful to you. And it sounds like it's also good to have those I don't, this is going to come out wrong, but the coincidental friend, somebody that you didn't realize had that position of influence that eventually did. So
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, so think about like a 4-person tag team wrestling style choral directors, whether in clinic or in session. Who are, besides yourself, who are there 3 other choral directors you might like to have in your corner?
E. Feely. I did my master's with Dr. Ely, and he's got the best handshake in the world. He's authentic. To some people, he's scary because he's so emotional, and he's willing to take a story and tell it, and ask you to do the same thing. So E. Feely would be one. I'd want Craig in there for sure. Craig Jessup. Um, I've got a dear friend in Houston, Sid Davis, who's at St. Luke's. I'd take Sid anytime. He's busier than anybody I know. And crazy Harry Wooten from Dallas. Harry's a William Jewell College guy who, again, he does a lot what I do. He has a community chorus as well. But I think if I had that balance, Harry's crazy enough. Sid and Harry and I have done our own 3-day sabbaticals where we'll rent a house and we pack about a foot of music in our suitcase, and then we have our own reading sessions and cook for one another, and here's some things, and just feed. Here's some ideas. That to me was really important to do that in the summers when we have time. But those 4, yeah,
Yeah, sounds like great sounding boards there for you. Okay, who rather is another choral musician you'd like to lift up? Maybe one that doesn't get as much attention as you think they deserve.
Whew, that's hard. I'm going to go with Kevin Macbeth. He's the president of Missouri ACDA. Kevin is very humble, has a large choral program at his church in St. Louis, and he was one of the influencers for me at Missouri ACDA. I took his place as the church person there, and then Andy Wagner they were good friends as well. And so the 3 of us much enjoyed each other's presence. And I think being the president of Missouri ACDA, sometimes when you're in those leadership roles, sometimes, yeah, you're seen a lot, but you're not heard a lot. in the kind of a personal way anymore. And I would love to lift him up. He's just a great guy. Enjoy the literature he does. I've been influenced a lot by, he does a concert series as well. And we've had members of my choir here whose mom and dad still sing in my choir, who moved to his church, and she does his children's choir now and sings for him. So it's I hear stories about him, but I don't get to visit with him much. He's always really busy. Whenever we'd have a conference or convention, I always try to get him to conduct pieces, because he's got the Darth Vader voice as well, and so you'd want him to narrate for sure. And I miss hearing, really good personal and choral stories from him, because he's always busy, organizing something and directing a choir in St. Louis. So
Yeah, Kevin McBeth. Yeah, I've met him and have followed closely on social media. So yeah, it's a great answer. Everybody, check out Kevin McBeth and his work. Okay, so if you're down to play, I have a little a Cellorando round that I like to play with our guests. Just quick fire questions. First thing that comes to mind. Doesn't have to be long answers or anything, just something you can think of off the top of your head. So and many of these have nothing to do with choral music. So what's the worst job you've ever had outside of choral music?
I would love to do it again. I lifeguarded for 4 summers, good and bad, saved one life, and that's the only reason I'd do it again. But that's tough hours.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But so glad you were there to save that life. What is your guilty pleasure bad food to eat?
About what?
Your guilty pleasure bad food to eat.
Oh, bad food. I could eat. My mother made more hamburgers than anything. And when I wouldn't eat anything else, I would always say, Mom, can't you make a hamburger? So I love hamburgers. Pizza is probably the other thing that I love and crave. So those aren't really bad. I
No,
quit
but
eating,
what vendors do you use for those hamburgers or pizzas?
yeah. So and chicken sandwiches. I think Chick-fil-A is still got the best chicken sandwich out there. But there's a great place here in Liberty, Conrad's, that has it's an ale house burger, and it is. I don't like onions anymore so much, but they put everything else on there, particularly jalapenos, and they always know when I'm coming. They get all the hot stuff out, and so that's probably and cheese, yeah, but
Yeah,
that doesn't have on
yeah,
it.
yeah. I understand completely. If you had any other job to do besides being a musician of some kind, what would that be?
Um, I'd really like to. I think I'd like to work in a dementia place where I've lost a mother-in-law with dementia. I did a concert based on dementia and Alzheimer's. And I think it's such a family disease that so many of the family members are overwhelmed. And to be able to marry music with both the patient and the family, to me, I don't know, it's kind of a natural thing for me to want to do. And I know it's scary when they're aggressive in dementia, but so many of them have times where music is so helpful, and I've witnessed that so much here. I'd love to do that, or
Uh,
work at a preschool for 4-year-olds, because
oh
that's
yeah.
son's age, and we have a preschool. I have 4-year-olds next door to me, again, on the other side of that wall,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah,
they are a hoot. I'd love to interact with them in the hallway. So
sure. Both beautiful answers. Okay. Um, what is a movie or TV show that you think everyone should watch at least once?
my favorite is of the last 10 years would be The Way. It's about the Spanish pilgrimage to St. James Cathedral, and I can't think of the correct name of the journey, but it can start in the French Pyrenees and go all the way across Spain and ends up on the Western Spain. It's a great movie, and it follows 4 people along that path from different parts of the world. It's called The Way.
Excellent. I don't know that. I'm going to have to check that out.
Good.
Okay, what is you have a choice here between these two questions. What's the scariest moment of your life, or what is your biggest phobia?
I don't have any phobias. Scariest life moment. At Steelville, we have these beautiful springs and caves, and next to the pool that I lifeguarded before I started lifeguarding, there's a spring that feeds a duck pond in town. Very unusual. And then it runs under this, and then it runs parallel. The stream runs parallel to Main Street. It's a gorgeous place, but there's all these rocks that tumble into each other, large ones, into the spring. And my buddy had tripped and fallen and I just remember this image of him head first hanging, ready to fall into the spring. And I think we were 12. And so I was close enough to be able to grab him and pull him out of that before he fell, or both of us fell, because you could get around the top of it pretty easily. I haven't thought of that in a long
Brian,
time.
I think you're a superhero because you've now saved 2 lives in this conversation.
Well, I threatened, I did say, now listen, there's some problems with you we got to fix before I pull you out of here. And so, yeah, he wasn't reluctant at all. And Donnie Ives was his name, best friend in the world. And as 12-year-olds, man, we relived that time and time again.
Goodness. Okay. What is something you spend way too much money on?
Starbucks. I only allow myself to go twice a week. But I find myself, I listen to folks order stuff and it's like, wow, I don't feel so bad getting a blonde roast and a blueberry muffin warmed up.
Well, I think that would be a common answer that would resonate with a lot of people there. What is a secret talent that most people would be surprised to learn about you?
I'm a whistler, and I've always been able to whistle well. I remember the first time I whistled, it was in my basement with my sister, and we were, sometimes you don't remember those things. I don't know how old I was, 4 maybe. I remember going to the grocery store one time at Bob's IGA here in Liberty, and heard this amazing whistler. Vibrato, not vibrato, high, low, didn't matter. He was just putting stuff up. He was happy. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I'm a professional musician. I don't whistle. And then working full time at the church, I would often come into rooms that had other workers in them. Sometimes they were by themselves. And so I started whistling, 50 feet back so that they could hear me coming. And then it has stuck, and it's 20 years later, I'm still whistling, and for no apparent reason anymore. I just whistle all the time in the hallways, and it's still based on not wanting to run in on
Okay.
somebody,
The audio may dip here if you try, but maybe we could get a demo.
Well, and one of the weird whistles I have is a hum and a whistle at the same time.
Oh, yeah, we did lose the audio a little bit. We got the first little bit, and then it dropped off.
But
yeah,
any
dang it, Zoom.
Yeah.
I'll have to adjust audio settings before I try to ask somebody else to do something like that.
And then I whistle things that have been in my head all day. My wife still says, why are you still having those melody lines? And why are you whistling them? And I said, well, some people say it's nice.
Mm-hmm. Some people, just not her. It's great. Okay, what is the oldest thing that you think is in your fridge?
Well, we've got some chicken in the freezer. Freezer or fridge?
Either one. Yeah, you choose.
We went through the other day, and there was some in there from it was pre-pandemic. We had not cleaned out.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. So several years old. And for some reason our refrigerator started freezing everything inside. So somebody had bumped a button somewhere. And so strawberries, we had yogurt and fruit this morning, and the strawberries were frozen. So it makes us look at all those things. There's probably I know we had some sausage in there the other day that was, and milk that was solid.
Gotcha. Okay. If you could, well, we've already talked about how you very well could be a superhero, but if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I think if I could have some kind of stun button for people who don't use their blinkers. Um,
A zapper. So we'll call
yeah,
you the zapper.
it would it wouldn't hurt them. It would just slow them down a lot, maybe, or I don't that's still be a pet peeve of mine.
Gotcha. Okay. If you could have a message on a billboard, any message for thousands of people to see, what would it say?
Yeah. So my father-in-law, he was a Presbyterian minister, and there was something about him. He was Mr. Positive his whole life, and it's just like, you're over the top, dude. Um, One of the things he used to do to embarrass all of us, he didn't do it to embarrass us, but if somebody said, "Have a great day," his name was Kay, and so have a great day, Kay. And he goes, "Oh, you don't have a great day. You make a great day." And so I sign on my Facebook Sunday mornings. I put "Good morning from Liberty United Methodist Church," and I take pictures of the crosses and clouds and chancel lighting, organ, whatever. And the last thing I say to honor him is, "Make it a great day." Exclamation point, because sometimes we can't make it a great day, but a lot of times it's our choice as to how we look at the day. So I sat through a lot of interviews with people with him who just didn't know what he meant. No, I really wanted to wish you a great day. Or you don't have a great day, you make a great day. That'd be it. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a very growth mindset of you. Okay, well, congratulations. You've achieved Tempo Presto here on this Cello Round Around. Thanks for playing. Um, okay, so what goals do you have in this upcoming season? What are you most looking forward to in your own personal musical journey?
Um, I think to be able to think ahead and cross off some possible barriers into making rehearsals work well for all the choirs I'm in. Chorale right now, we've got 4 different programs for Christmas. A Bavarian, Austrian, we have a Pops, and we're doing the Benedict Sheehan Christmas Carol and something else, high school concert. Anyway, trying to go through that rehearsal and trying to figure out what goes where. How do I organize that folder or folders, I guess. Man, then as a singer, how do I take that fear and take it to my other rehearsals with people that have to deal with what I give them? So I think just trying to lay out the path and make sure I don't create problems already. Trying to keep a clean path is, I don't mind the 2 roads diverged and somebody took the wrong way, but I'd like to not give them 3, or one that has a bunch of brush around, in front of it. That's a goal I have for myself, musically. I think outside of that, I'd like to be able to honor family a little more with my presence and my time, so that I'm not just this vague dad, that papa that is occasionally around, but available for whoever needs me.
Yeah, well, I think those are noble goals. Where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah. So I think my Facebook page would be something you could find out a lot more about my personal life and what I do musically. I try to honor people. If you want to find out about Jan Craybill, for instance, if you need a great organist, and she's not only an organist, but a teacher of the music. She has all these wonderful stories, and she's always trying to make people happier. And that's hard to do in this day and age. So I think my Facebook page would be great. Something about the Liberty Community Chorus. If you want to find out about what we're doing, and it's a non-audition choir, which I think is really healthy for people to get in without having to audition for it. It's one less thing for them to do, and that it's not knocking the audition choirs at all. It's just that it's hard to keep an 80 voice adult choir going intergenerationally, that's not auditioned. So
Great. You have a website for that? We can put that in the description of this video.
libertycommunitychorus.org.
Okay, perfect. Well,
That's
this has been a great conversation, Brian. Thank you so much for joining me on this Connections podcast. Anything that we didn't get to that you would like to offer up for the membership to hear? Did we cover everything?
I think we covered everything. I think sharing of different music with people is so important in whatever genre you're working in. And church music, there's pieces I found one the other day on a William Jewell alumni choir, a Mary McDonald piece I'd never heard before, and they chose it for one of the pieces to do. And so I've already ordered it. So I can't wait for it to get in.
There you go. Great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank
much.
you. Yeah, of course. Of course. All right. Thank you, folks. Stay tuned for our next episode. And be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for future content. We appreciate you.